Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please join us today in the study of Srimad Bhagavatam. Today we will be covering Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 21, Conversation between Manu and Kardama. Hare Krishna, please join us for Jai Radha Madhav prayers. Dear devotees, आप सबका स्वागत है, आप सबका अभिनंदन है. Welcome to the class. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, dear viewers. Hari Bol. Welcome to Srimad Bhagavatam class. आज जीव तत्व प्रभु जी कर रहे हैं Canto 3, Chapter 21. और जैसा कि आप में से काफ़ी लोगों को पता है, जीव तत्व प्रभु जी चैप्टर लेवल पर लेसन्स शेयर करते हैं. बाकी चैप्टर्स की तरह इस चैप्टर में भी बहुत सारे वर्सेस हैं और बहुत सारे एक्सटेंसिव पर्पट्स हैं जिनमें बहुत नेक्टर है. लेकिन अगर आप अटेंटिवली ये भागवतम क्लास का श्रवण करेंगे तो आपको विद इन 1 आवर पूरे चैप्टर के लेसन्स का बेनिफिट मिलेगा. और अगर आपके कुछ क्वेश्चंस हैं, प्लीज़ क्लास एंड होने पर आप ज़रूर अपने क्वेश्चंस प्रेजेंट कर सकते हैं कमेंट्स में. I will read your questions to Prabhuji and he can answer your questions. और meanwhile जितने भी न्यू व्यूअर्स हैं, आपका आज खास स्वागत है. सभी व्यूअर्स की जय. हरि बोल. श्रीमद् भागवतम क्लास की जय. Prabhuji, please go ahead with the class.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please join us for Mangalacharan prayers. We'll sing them together. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam. Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudiriyet. Shratam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtanaha. हृदयन्तस्थो ह्यभद्राणि विदुनोति सुहृत्सताम्. नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया. भगवतेरुत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी. Hare Krishna, please join us in the recitation of the first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 21. Vidur uvacha स्वयं भुवस्य च मनोर वंशः परमसम्मतः कथयतां भगवन् यत्र मैथुनेन धीरे प्रजाः. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Vidur said, the line of Swayambhuva Manu was most esteemed. O worshipful sage, I beg you, give me an account of this race whose progeny multiplied through sexual intercourse. Hare Krishna. It is a very short purport, but very, enlivening. So, purport: regulated sex life to generate good population is worth accepting. Actually, Vidur was not interested. Hare Krishna. Purport: so regulated sex life to generate good population is worth accepting. Actually, Vidur was not interested in hearing the history of persons who merely engaged in sex life, but he was interested in the progeny of Swayambhuva Manu, because in that dynasty, good devotee kings appeared who protected their subjects very carefully with spiritual knowledge. By hearing the history of their activities, therefore, one becomes more enlightened. An important word used in this connection is Paramasammataha, which indicates that the progeny created by Swayambhuva Manu and his sons was approved by great authorities. In other words, sex life for creating exemplary population is acceptable to all sages and authorities of Vedic scripture. Hare Krishna, please join us for Guru Pranati. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatya Deshatarine Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yat Kripa Tadaham Vande Shri Gurum Dinataranam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So this chapter starts with the title talks about conversation, but it starts with an inquiry, and it is Mahatma Vidur who's making the inquiry, and he is inquiring from his spiritual master Maitreya Muni, son of Mitra. So again, he's inquiring from Maitreya Muni about progeny of Swayambhuva Manu, and as we hear in this particular chapter, again, these are great sages, and Maitreya Muni, he is discussing about the progeny. So this progeny is also of very, great importance. And in Bhagavad Gita, this reference has been given by Lord Shri Krishna. Evam parampara praptam imam rajashayo viduhu sakalene mehta. Again. So again, this is where he's saying, Evam parampara praptam imam rajashayo viduhu. And this yoga was destroyed because this disciplic succession was broken. So he is revealing again to Arjuna. So he is giving that reference. Lord Krishna is revealing to Arjuna that imam vivasvate yogam prokta vaham ivam avyayam. So again, he had already imparted this knowledge to Arjuna, to Vivaswan, the sun god previously. And not to sun, once again, Vivasvate. So, and Hare Krishna. So here he imparted it to, Vivaswan, the sun god, and sun god's son is again Vaivasvata Manu. Again, there it is given. And Vaivasvata Manu had imparted it to his son Ikshvaku, who was the ruler of this planet Earth, and who had imparted to his sons and so forth. So yes, it has been passed on from generation to generation. But, the importance is there is a disciplic succession, so that has been identified. And this particular chapter, all of a sudden we are seeing that the progeny is coming from sexual intercourse. So from that particular perspective, seminal children are being discussed. So again, and Maitreya Muni is a sage. Now people would be surprised. Why is he interested in describing this? So in the purpose, Srila Prabhupada is revealing that not just he is interested in discussing, also Mahatma Vidur. He is also interested in hearing the great progeny, the great descendants of Swayambhuva Manu. And so this is actually encouraged and also approved by the sages and the authorities in the Shastras, that we should discuss about the great devotees of the Lord. And Swayambhuva Manu, who is none other than a son of Lord Brahma. Kardama Muni, he is born from the shadow of Lord Brahma. So when we look at these two personalities, we can say, yes, they are appearing like sons. And till this point, again, the progeny was in a form Samrat. So we heard, in the previous chapters, where even Lord Brahma was called as Samrat, that he was independent. When he is called independent, that's also very important to understand that he was creating this progeny. He created the 10 sages, the 4 Kumaras. Lord Shambhu appeared from the middle of his eyebrows when he was in anger. So he named Lord Shambhu as Rudra and gave him 11 names. Rudra, that's why also means 11, in numbers. And so again, and various personalities were coming out from his body. Even the demons, the Rakshasas, the Gandharvas, the demigods. Again, he was creating all hordes of human beings who were occupying the higher planetary systems, lower planetary system. And when, from his body appeared, who? Swayambhuva Manu and Shatrupa. So both of them appeared. Now sometimes people, they have this tendency, both appear, so they must be brother and sisters. No, that is not always true. These personalities appeared and they were married together so that they would have progeny. And they had 5 children, 2 sons and 3 daughters, right? So Priyavrata and Uttanpada are the sons, and Devahuti, Prasuti and Akuti, these are the daughters. So here the description is coming where Viduji is inquiring about this, the descendant of Swayambhuva Manu, and especially interested about the Kardama Muni and Devahuti. So here Maitreya Muni starts describing. So even such topics where the progeny is there, they are related with Kṛṣṇa, as we hear in this chapter. And all desires are fulfilled by the Lord, in life for the surrendered soul. So first is we have to surrender, we have to serve. And that is the process. Even in the spiritual journey, when we start our spiritual journey, Lord Kṛṣṇa reveals in the 4th chapter, 34th verse, Tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya updeshyanti tajjnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. Tad vidhi. So there is a vidhi, right? And tad vidhi refers to please try to understand, as well as, there is a process. So this is the process that we should try to understand. Paripratena pariprashnena sevaya. So we should take, shelter of a bona fide spiritual master who is appearing in parampara, right? Just like in, Bhagavad Gita, Lord Kṛṣṇa, how is he revealing? That this knowledge is passed in parampara. Evam parampara praptam. How do you get it? Prapt kaise hoti hai? Jab aap parampara se lete ho, right? That is the way to learn. So again, otherwise we may read and misinterpret it. Vedas are formless, but we are limited. So when we read Vedas without proper guidance, we can misinterpret the words. And Sanskrit language, even life, is very contextual. It is not literary. So again, you have to understand from the difference. When somebody performs an action, we just don't look at the action. We want to know what was his motive behind those actions, right? If you see somebody holding a knife in their hands, you would say, oh, this is a dangerous person. I don't want to get close to him. But then you see, if the person is a doctor, your attitude will change compared to a person who's a thug. A doctor holding a knife would benefit the patient, but a thug holding a knife would harm the other person that they are facing. So it is very contextual. That's why our life is very contextual. We should just not look at a specific situation. Sometimes we see a very erudite scholar, giving lectures after lectures talking about it. And then when we see their life, we see that it's all completely upside down. And that reveals to us that actually they're making a show. People put on various faces, various masks for the public, while devotees seek to learn this and apply it in their life so that they can live the values that we are learning from the Shastras, from SRIMADBHAGAVATAM. There are great lessons we learn from Bhagavad Gita, as we covered yesterday. There are great principles and values we learn how to live life. A life that is, spiritual life. Again, not just material life. We are spiritual beings, people say, and we are having material experience. Why should we have material experience? We are spiritual beings, we should have spiritual experience. And it simply starts with the chanting of the holy name. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Rāma, Hare Rāma, Rāma Rāma, Hare Hare. And here, we have to not just take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master, not just accept and aspire to be a disciple. Understand the meaning what disciple means. Disciple means one who is ready to be disciplined. And we should serve them and we should submissively inquire for them. Now the mood is very important. The serving should be in the mood of surrender, because the spiritual master is the representative of Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So a representative should be treated like God. And so his words should be taken as an order, as an adesh, should be taken to the heart, that we should follow them. So again, when we hear from our spiritual master the instructions. Now when we hear instructions, also when somebody hears some instructions or some orders, there are three categories the recipient may be in. First is a first-class disciple understands the purport of the message. And a beautiful example comes from Srila Prabhupada's life itself. That when his spiritual master said, "Oh, why don't you translate these scriptures in English language so that the Western world can understand?" Srila Prabhupada understood the purport, that not just just translate them in English, make them with respect to the current context, and then take it to the Western world and spread this knowledge there. So he didn't just wrote the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam and said, "Okay, I'm done." No, he continued to travel, take that message to connect to the audience. So we have to connect to the audience, take that message of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so he understood the purpose. So that's first class devotee. Second class devotee would be, somebody who hears the instruction, just does it, and then, okay, I'm done, and kind of like feels satisfied, walks away. But third class devotee is the most fallen state. We never want to be in this state, that one hears the instructions, says to everyone that, yes, see, I have received this instruction, so you should also do this, but forgets to even do himself. So such a person, one forgets to do oneself the instruction, but tells that I have to receive such and such instruction, is like a third class person. He's making more of a show instead of carrying out the instructions. So we have to take these instructions and mold our life according to these instructions. That is the goal. That is the direction as how we can be disciplined as well as perfect our life. And Updekshanti Tajjnanam, that when we make submissive inquiries, then the spiritual master can reveal the truth to us, right? Because they are tattvadashi. Updekshanti Tajjnanam jnaninas tattvadarsinaha. So the spiritual master has seen the truth. Tattva means truth. So again, they know the fact. They have seen the truth. So they can reveal. So they can reveal it to us, and we can understand it in proper level. So again, thinking, feeling, willing. Sometimes we understand, okay, knowing is one level, understanding is one level, but carrying out that understanding in our life leads to realization. So yes, sometimes, acharyas, they talk about knowledge and realization, and there is a middle stage of understanding. Yes, there is knowledge. Are we able to understand it in context? And if we are able to understand it in context, then how are we applying it in our life? And when we apply it in our life with the right context, with the right mood, with the right surrender, with that mood of gratitude, with that mood of devotion, with the mood of reflection and reciprocation towards the mercy that we have been bestowed with by our spiritual master, by Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa, and by the advanced devotees of the Lord, we feel enlivened, we feel blessed. So to receive the blessing, we should seek the shelter of a bona fide spiritual master, right? And submissively inquire. So here Vidurji is inquiring from Matramuni, his spiritual master, and he wants to know about this subject because there are great devotees of the Lord who appeared in this lineage. Now earlier, Lord Brahma, actually there are three main subjects. Let me just cover the three main lessons. First is, Lord Kṛṣṇa fulfills all desires of the surrendered soul. So just by surrendering, all your desires can be fulfilled. So that is one. And now people say, what is the proof? Where has it been given in the Shastras? Yes, in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam itself, this was revealed. Akamaha sarva kamova moksha kama udarade tivrena bhakti yogena yajate purusham param. Akamaha, even if you have no desire. So again, no desire means no desire for material enjoyment. The context is important, like I said, right? So when you have no material desire, but have all the desires to serve the Lord. Now, we as living entities cannot be desireless. We'll always have desire. But when we desire to please the Lord, that state is referred to as desireless. And sarva kamova. So sarvakama means we have all kind of material desires. And then mokshikama. And then we want to have a desire to be liberated from the clutches of this maya, to transcend the three modes of material nature. And this level can be on three different levels. Again, we realize the absolute truth. We can realize again the transcendental is realize absolute truth in three forms, right? Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagwan. Brahman is like sunshine. So just like from sun globe comes sunshine, so similarly Brahman is coming from the effulgence. It's an effulgence coming from the body of Lord Shri Krishna. And Lord Krishna, he expands as super soul, Shiva Vishnu, and he is residing in the heart of every living entity. He is even between the spaces between the atoms, not just in the atoms, but he expands eternally. So the eternal feature is present in Brahman, but not the Chit and Ananda feature. In Paramatma, eternity and Chit, full of knowledge, is present, right? But in Bhagwan, all three are present. That's why Lord Brahma sings, Ishvaraha Paramaha Krishnaha Sachidananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govindaha Sarva Karana Karanam. Ishvara Paramaha Krishna. So Lord Krishna is the Parameshwar. He is the supreme personality of Godhead, the supreme controller. So we are all, control some small things, but we are not the supreme controller. He is the supreme controller. And what is his body like? His body is Satchidananda Vigraha. Vigraha is reflecting to his, form. And he has a form which is full of eternity, knowledge and bliss. Yes, Ananda. Anadir Adir Govinda. So there is no one older than him, Anadir. And he is the oldest, Adi, Govinda, and he gives pleasure to the cows and to the senses. That's the meaning of Govinda. Go refers to cows as well as to senses. Sarva Karana Karanam, and he is the cause of all causes, right? So again, we understand that he is the supreme cause. So he is our cause, right? And then when we do something, because he is our father, he gets the blame at times. And he also is praised when the living entities, they do something great in glory of the Lordship. So that is great. In the glory of a personality, their own self, then it is not so great, because this is self-promotion, self-provocation. So again, that is not what has been encouraged. Rather, we want to glorify the Lord, the supreme personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna. So again, from here, Akama, Sarvakama, Mokshikama Udaradhi. So liberation could be on three different levels, you can think of it this way, right? We also saw that yogis, they go through an Ashtang process to get various kind of siddhis. And they feel liberated at that level, but again, they are able to play with the material energy, but may not be able to enter Vaikuntha. We see in the case of Chatur Kumaras that who were Brahmanwadis, they were thinking that Brahman is everything, the spiritual effulgence. But then when they went to Vaikuntha, they could even see the Lord in their hearts. So the Paramatma feature was also there, and that's why they were so siddhas. They had 8 kind of mystic, they still have 8 mystic potencies. Yet at the same time, unless you become a devotee, you cannot enter Vaikuntha. So they were stopped by Jaya. We covered that story earlier, right? So liberation can be at these various levels, and here again mainly it is with respect to Brahman, and then residing in Vaikuntha and serving the Lord eternally. That is the second way. These are the 2 prime ways that have been identified in the scriptures. Vadantita tatvidas tattvam yajnanam avyayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagwaniti shabdyate. So the learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth realize the absolute truth in 3 forms: Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagwan. And now he can fulfill all desires, right? So akama sarvakamo va mokshikama udare tivrena bhakti yogena. So how do you get all your desires fulfilled? It is said that tivrena bhakti yoga. Tivra means with great enthusiasm, with great energy, with great jubilation, full surrender. With full surrender, with great gratitude, you serve the Lord, right? Bhakti yogena. Bhakti Yogena means engage in the devotional service. So in devotional service, we look at it from three aspects, right? Sambandha, Abhideya and Prayojana. Sambandha is that we are not this body, we are the eternal soul. So if we are the eternal soul, what is our duties? What is our nature? Jivera Suruphoya Krishnera Nityadas. Krishnera Tatastha Shakti Bheda Bheda Prakash. Jivera Surup. What is our Surup? What is our constitutional position? Krishnera Nityadas. That we are eternal servant of Lord Shri Krishna. Krishnera Tatastha Shakti. So we are the marginal potency of Lord Shri Krishna. Right? Bheda Bheda Prakash. So we are simultaneously one and then different. How are we one? Qualitatively. All the qualities that we get in, they are coming from Lord Shri Krishna. So that's why qualitatively one, but quantitatively different. Because he is unlimited, we are limited. He is the supreme controller and we control little things. He is completely independent, Swarat. We have little independence. So there are various aspects where we are minuscule and he is magnanimous. He is unlimited and we are limited. Reminds me of a painting that one of the disciples of Srila Prabhupada, he had painted and he showed it to Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada said, where do you see this incident? Because he was always telling his disciple, he was always instructing his disciple, Srila Prabhupada was instructing his disciple to draw the pictures as described in the Shastras. And this painter had deviated. So his disciple, the painter disciple said, Srila Prabhupada, Krishna is unlimited, isn't he? And then Srila Prabhupada said, yes, Krishna is unlimited, but you are limited. So we should understand our limitation and follow the Shastras, follow the instructions and seek to inquire and act accordingly. So it is also something very important that we learn, that to be able to inquire, we have to be ready to receive the instruction and then follow the instruction. Sometimes people, they pick up, Bhagavad Gita, they read Bhagavad Gita. And it is very interesting. They just sometimes want to say, oh, we want to study Bhagavad Gita. Just for the sake that, okay, we are studying Bhagavad Gita. Not really to understand it. And if you don't understand it, how are you going to realize it? How can you follow those instructions in your life? It is not something that you just open and just read. Yes, that benefits you. But the importance is to follow what's given in there. Right? Everyone is so much attached to one verse. Again, Karmane vadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. Again, you can continue to go forward. But, even in this verse, in the beginning, everyone just pays attention to Karmane vadhikaraste. They forget the next part of this in the verse is ma phaleshu kadachana. You have the right to perform your duties. Not to act, but to perform your duties. Your prescribed duties based on the influence of the material nature, the body that we have received, which is like the vehicle given to us by the mercy of the Lordship, so that we can cross over this ocean of nations, is influenced by the three modes of material nature. So it is acting like a puppet. Yet at the same time, we have to act according to our prescribed duties, based on our ashram, based on the influence of the three modes of material nature. And it has to be aligned with our constitutional position. Then we are successful. Now when we are acting in this manner, we have to understand, yes, what are our duties? And there are duties clearly described in the Shastra, so we should be carrying out those duties. But the later part says, Ma phaleshu kadachana, but we are not entitled to the fruits of our labor. So this is where sometimes Srila Prabhupada uses the word fruitive worker. And they say, oh, devotees are also fruitive worker. No, actually, devotees offer all their fruits to please Lord Shri Krishna in his service. That is why they become desireless, because everything, all activities they are doing, all these activities to please Krishna. So again, their focus is, same activity. A devotee is cooking and a general person who's a non-devotee is cooking. But a devotee is cooking, singing, thinking, willing to please Lord Shri Krishna, constantly meditating on Lord Shri Krishna. Non-devotee may be thinking, oh, let me enjoy this meal after I cook. And if there is a family involved, then could be thinking, let me cook it for my family, let me cook it for their pleasure. Here, this is Krishna's pleasure. So both are cooking. And then one, feeds it to the family, and another one, the devotee, feeds it to the first, offers it, the bhoga, to the Lordship with love, with surrender. And Lord Krishna does not require much. He is very happy. Yet at the same time, we should do to the best of our ability, because we are dealing with the Supreme Personality of Godhead who has provided us all the necessities, so He should be offered the best. So when we serve Lord Shri Krishna with that mood, He becomes pleased, and the bhoga becomes prasad, right? And when it becomes prasad, the remnants, prasad, there is a beautiful meaning of prasad. Prasad means Lord's causeless mercy, His blessings. Many times people say, Prabhuji, how can we get blessings of the Lord? Well, all you have to do is, cook beautiful prasad, wonderful prasad, wonderful bhoga offering, and then offer it to the Lordship. And then, yes, they say, how can we offer to the Lordship? What are the mantras? So again, it is always beneficial to go through the paramparas, right? Because when you offer to your spiritual master is not going to directly accept. He is going to offer to his spiritual master and so forth. And parampara is connected with Lord Shri Krishna. So ultimately it will be offered to Lord Shri Krishna before anybody seeks to, enjoy it. So again, that is, the real enjoyment is in offering, in giving. That is the important message. In showing the gratitude that yes, by Lord's mercy we have received this, and first it should be offered to the Lord. So that's why we offer first through our spiritual masters to the Lordship, and then it becomes purified. And when we offer it to Lord Krishna, we simply says, Namo Brahmanaya Devaya Go Brahmanaya Hitaya Cha Jagat Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Again, and when we offer it to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the simple offering prayer is Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratushe Namaha. So by doing this, we actually get the offering, done. And we should offer with this gratitude that, my dear Lord, please accept this, food offering that I am presenting you, and please bless me. And with love, with gratitude, with devotion, we offer. And then after the offering is over, when we come back, then we offer it to the parampara, right? We offer it to the spiritual masters. And then we distribute it, because first it becomes prasad, then when the spiritual masters have tasted it, then it becomes mahaprasad. And then we all take mahaprasad, which is nourishing not just to the physical body, but to the spirit soul, because it is a blessing. Very simple way to get blessing. So all our desires can be fulfilled when we approach Lord Shri Krishna and engage in Bhakti Yoga. So Sambandha we talked about, that our eternal, our constitutional position is as an eternal servant of Lord Shri Krishna. And Abhideya is the process, the 9 processes. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atma Nivedanam. So again, we should engage in the 9 processes of devotional service, and the most potent one is Shravanam, hearing. So by constantly hearing Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, regularly studying Srimad Bhagavatam, we can also grow. So again, in the 11th canto, it is added by Shukdev Goswami. He identifies that reading and writing are also the 2 processes. And then Srila Rupa Goswami talks about 64 ways we can engage in devotional service. Hare Krishna. And of course, there is a great example we can refer to. Ram Navami is coming, right? Lord Ram's appearance day. And so we can engage all our time in remembering Lord Ram. And Lord Ram is none other than Krishna coming in the form, he's acting as Lord Ram. So again, the same personality Krishna, he appears. Sometimes people say it is Vasudev Krishna who's coming. Yes, that is also true. Because original Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he never steps out of Vrindavan. So the first most important lesson is we learn to surrender and serve the Lord, right? And in case of Lord Ramchandra, when he appeared, who served him? Everybody knows. Vajrangabali, right? Hanumanji, yes. So he sets the example of how to serve. And when we approach Bajrangbali, again, we glorify him. Always remember this, Das of Lord Ramchandra. Always serve him. And we glorify his personal form as well. So again, sometimes people say, but then the interesting thing is, then they start asking Hanumanji to serve them. No. We should be serving Hanumanji. We should be in the right attitude, right? He's a great devotee of the Lord. He is engaging Lord Ramchandra. We should be saying, how can we help you in serving Lord Ramchandra? So Lord Krishna fulfills all desires. That is the first lesson. Second lesson we learn here is that all desires, though fulfilled, even the desire to have progeny and to hear about the devotees and progeny is a desire that Viduji is putting in front of matrimony, and matrimony is describing it because it is approved by the sages and great authorities, the devotees of the Lord. And third aspect is that it is actually a loving exchange between the devotees and even devotee and the Lord. So again, loving exchanges are very important. Dadati pratigrahanati guhyam akhyati prichati bhunjate bhojate chaiva sadvitam priti lakshanam. So what are the symptoms of love? Priti lakshanam. So what are the 6 symptoms? Dadati pratigrahanati. Giving of gifts, accepting gifts. Guhyam akhyati prichati. Guhyam is confidential matters. Excuse me. Confidential matters. So one should, discuss confidential matters and inquire. Prichati is inquiring. Right? And the most confidential matters are the pastimes of Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa and his devotees, and they are described extensively in Srimad Bhagavatam. And Bhunjate bhojate cheva. So again, giving of prasadam and accepting prasadam. Again, after the offering is made, the bhoga offering is made, it becomes prasad. So distributing prasadam, giving of prasadam, accepting prasadam, these are loving symptoms, and that is the basis why Srila Prabhupada established ISKCON, International Society for Kṛṣṇa Consciousness. Sometimes people say of Kṛṣṇa consciousness. That would not be the right way, because that would mean only here there is Kṛṣṇa consciousness, and we know that not just in ISKCON, there are 4 paramparas that are coming up, right? And so, and Lord, he has spread this knowledge through so many mediums. And we also hear as how he gave knowledge to different people around the world to the level they were able to understand. He sent his son as Jesus. He sent his messenger as Muhammad. So again, we realize that yes, Lord is constantly enlightening all races of human society. But the beginning of human society is from Manu, Swayambhuva Manu, who wrote Manu Samhita, right? And we have to follow the laws of Manu Samhita with the right context. Now the context is very, very important. You cannot just take the literary aspect and just apply as it is without using our intelligence. One of them is, like people say, okay, as per Manu Samhita, if somebody has committed murder, then he should be given capital punishment. He should, he's going to accumulate so much reaction. So if his body is killed, he has received the punishment, and then he would not suffer too much in the future. And why is this capital punishment not encouraged? Because too many innocent people have been given capital punishment after they were, sentenced, they received the death sentence, and the punishment was carried out. It was discovered that they were innocent. So yes, in today's society, people don't have intelligence enough to judge who is the real culprit and who is not. Then the capital punishment loses its value. And you could be punishing an innocent person, and that reaction would come back to you. So that's why judges, they realize that yes, this is not the right system. All the administrators, they realize it's not the right system that can be applied in our society currently. So our society currently does not have the intelligence to be able to apply the Manu Samhita based laws. So those laws they cannot apply, we should not try to force them. Yes, And a person himself, if he knows that he has committed a murder, then he should, give up that body. Now again, from Lord Brahma's perspective, given that body is much easier because he has to just give up his mentality, as Acharyas explained. And he corrects himself and with repentance engage in, bhakti yoga, constantly repenting on the past deeds. And sometimes people say, well, I have not performed past deeds, any sinful reaction and any sinful activity in my past. Well, in that case, do you remember how many births you have been here for? And do you remember how many sinful deeds you might have performed? Excuse me. So again, we have to look at things in right perspective. We have to see that, we may not have performed any sinful activity, but since we have this material body, that is a sign that we must have performed sinful activity in our past lives. For many, many lives we have been here and we have no idea, no account, no remembrance of any of those activities. So here, Maitreya Muni is asking about the descendants of Swayambhuva. He's describing Maitreya Muni, and his description starts with discussion about Kardama Muni and Devahuti, because that's the inquiry by Vidurji. And he says that near the bank of Saraswati, Kardama Muni, he had his ashram. And he was constantly meditating, and he was meditating. So now his meditation has been identified that he is engaging in devotional service. So that is an important aspect, that Kardama Muni was not just meditating. Yes, meditation is one of the processes, but he as a yogi. Yogi is one who is connected with the Supreme Lord, Godhead, and that process is called yoga. And the best process is bhakti yoga. By engagement in devotional service, we are directly serving, pleasing Lord Kṛṣṇa, and so that would be beneficial for us. And here, Kardama Muni, he is meditating. So meditation, we saw that how Lord Brahma by tapa. There is also another differences. Now, from Swayambhuva Manu and Shatrupa came these 5 children. So that is by progeny, like seminal, process. So they are seminal children. While from Lord Brahma, he is also called, Swarat. He is independent because he did not need a wife to produce so many living entities. He produced, from his mind Marichi Muni. The Chaturkumaras were there. From the middle of his eyebrows came out Shambhu Sadashiva. And so from the various parts of his bodies, the 10 sages came out. Marichi from his mind, Kardama from his shadow, and so forth. And then the demigods, demons, Rakshasas, so many personalities, they appeared. Even the ghost hobgoblins, they all appeared as well. So we hear about all those. But here it is through the sexual intercourse that the progeny is increasing. So Kardama Muni, he is meditating, and Lord appeared, being pleased. So for how many years did he meditate? He meditated for 10,000 years. Now 10,000 years means his body must be able to endure and have a long life. And this is in Satyuga. Second verse reveals that it was in Satyuga when Kardama Muni was performing austerity. We hear that Vishwamitra in Satyuga, he performed austerity for 60,000 years. We also hear that even though he was performing for a great time, his meditation was broken by Menaka. And, with her, he had a daughter called Shakuntala, who was later married to Dushyanta. And they had a son, Bharat Maharaj. And it is in the lineage of Bharat Maharaj that we see the Pandavas and the Kauravas appearing. So here, this is also very important that, in Satyuga, people could live for 100,000 years. So they had long life. And the 4, legs of religion, bull, they were, intact. So again, what are these? Austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. So people could perform great austerity. They could meditate for 10,000, 20,000 years to be able to get perfection and see the Lord themselves. So Kardama Muni was able to see the Lord. So it is not an imaginary form that he saw. He, like Srila Prabhupada says, today these yogis, many people, they claim themselves to be yogis, and they say, create an imaginary picture in your heart of whatever you feel like, and then you meditate on it. Or you just meditate on the sound vibration. But what are you meditating on? Because as soon as you hear a sound, automatically an image comes to mind, right? When you call out name of your son or daughter or your parents, right? Immediately their image appears in your eyes. So what are you meditating on? That's also very important. When we meditate, we also know that Kali Kale Nam Rupe Kṛṣṇa Avatare. So as soon as we remember, we call out the name of the Lord, we immediately think of his name, form, activities, pastimes. The deities at the home may appear in our heart. The deities, at the temples. But these are all, the Pran Pratishtha is there. So Lord is so merciful. Because we cannot see him, he appears in the form of deities. And Srila Prabhupada called these pictures as window to the spiritual world. So again, Lord Kṛṣna appearing, at the battle of Kurukshetra. So that is him appearing, and he looks so young, just like 16-year-old young boy. Even though he was over 100 years, he had been there in this world at that time. And he is, of course, Anadir Adir Govinda. He is eternal, but his body is always Navi Yauvanamcha. So again, he is always youthful in appearance. And so here, Kardama Muni is engaged in devotional services, meditating, and Lord appeared. And how does he appear? It is said that he is appearing, he is, standing on the back of Garud, and Garud's, wings are flapping. He's, up in the sky, appearing to Kardama Muni. And on his back, Lord is standing. And he has this rain cloud like complexion. In his forearm form, he is appearing. And now there is a difference. Every time we hear, when Lord appears, he is always holding what? Gada Chakra Padma Shank. So yes, he is holding the Kamadaki Gada, he is holding the Shank, and he is holding Chakra. But instead of Padma, instead of lotus, the reference given in this verse is he is holding he is playing with a white lily in one of his hands. So, and he is smiling, he is very happy with Kardama Muni. And Kardama Muni immediately gets up and offers obeisance, Sashtang Pranam. Sashtang Pranam, so again, it's also called Dandavat. So Danda refers to Danda. So like, if you have a stick and it falls flat down, that's what Dandavat Pranam. So you lay down completely. And Sashtang means again the 8 parts of your body, they are touching the ground. And when the ladies, they pay obeisances with the bent knees and the bent back. So in that particular case, 5 parts of the body. So again, that's recommended for ladies. Men also do that. But when we see the Lordship, when we see the spiritual master, we should do Sashtang Pranam, immediately, fully laid down, straight onto the ground. So here, he is saying that the perfection of my eyes have been achieved now. So because eyes are meant to see the beautiful form of Lord, not the beautiful form of this material creation, but the beautiful form of the spiritual form of Lord Shri Kṛṣna, Lord Vishnu. So again, when he appears, Lord is appearing in his dressed with beautiful ornaments, and the Kaustubha Mani is around his neck. Shivatsa, the golden white twirl of locks of hair, is on his chest, and he has lotus eyes, and he's wearing shark-shaped earrings. His locks, the curly hair are shining against his face, and his smile is mesmerizing. He's smiling so nicely with so much love, and he's standing on top of Garud, on the back of Garud, and Garud is holding himself, stationary, flapping his wings softly. And this form, when he sees Lord in golden silken clothes, nicely ornamented and appearing with his beautiful smile, Kardama Muni feels that his eyes have attained perfection. Our tongue attains perfection when we take Krishna Prasad. Our arms and legs, they attain perfection when we, act to please Lord Shri Kṛṣna. When we pay obeisances to our spiritual master, to Lord Shri Krishna. When we work, right, when we engage, these are karmendriyas, to please Lord Shri Krishna. And when we hear bhajan, when we hear kirtan, glories of Lord Krishna's name, form, activities, pastimes. When we chant, we should also hear very attentively the chanting of the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We attain perfection by hearing our ears, hearing the sound vibration, the transcendental sound vibration, praying to the Lordship. Oh Shri Shri Radharani, oh Shri Shri Lord Shri Krishna, please engage me in your service. Our ears attain perfection. And when we sing the glories of the Lord, when we do Kirtan, Hari Kirtan, then our tongue attains perfection. When we smell the tulsi leaves offered to the Lordship, when we smell the flowers that have been offered to the Lordship, anything that's offered to the Lordship, we attain, our nose seeks perfection, attains perfection that way. So all our senses become spiritualized. Our memory becomes spiritualized, our intelligence becomes spiritualized, our body becomes spiritualized. There is nothing material because everything in direct consciousness. What does Lord Krishna says? That thinking that things are not connected with me, that is illusion, that is Maya. So when we think that, oh, we are supposed to be enjoying in this world without realizing that we should actually be giving enjoyment to Lord Shri Krishna, that is material. Why have material experience when you can have spiritual experience? There is no comparison because material experience will agitate us, will cause hankering in us, will cause aspirations in us, will cause anxiety in us, which will bring the fearful state that will make our life miserable. Why seek misery when you can be transcendentally happy, eternally happy, not just, momentary happy or having the wrong sense of happiness like people get in this material world when they are seeking sense gratification. Because the senses are spiritualized. So here, Kardama Muni is pleased and he is glorifying the Lord with beautiful, speaking. And then when he is singing the prayers afterwards, Lord says, he understands what Kardama Muni asks, is desiring. And Kardama Muni, he is presenting his desire in a very submissive manner. He says, my dear Lord, and why is Kardama Muni carrying it out is also very important. Because Lord Brahma, after he created the 10 sages, he said, go and increase the progeny. And when he created Swayambhav Manu and Shatrupa, when they came out from his body, at that time everybody was jubilant that they said, okay, now the sacrifices will be performed and we will enjoy, and of course we will be able to work very nicely. And in our 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, this arrangement between demigods and the human beings has been identified, where the human beings will offer the grains and various kind of sacrificial offerings to the demigods, and demigods will give them the blessings. So this arrangement has been established by Lord Shri Krishna, right? So that everyone in the universe can very nicely sustain themselves and focus on spiritual realization, self-realization of a true position and engagement in devotion service, so that we can all go back home, back to Godhead. So here, we are all in this moment together, so we have to engage in pleasing Lord Shri Krishna together. When all the sons and daughters are engaging, pleasing the Father automatically becomes happy and he blesses every one of them. And then the ones who are not pleasing, Father desires that it would be nice if they could join this, such nice, bright sons and daughters of his and engage in pleasing, so that he can also, bless them. So why should we be devoid of such wonderful blessings of the Lordship? We should immediately take to devotional service. We should immediately take to devotee association. We should immediately start reading SRIMADBHAGAVATAM Bhagavad Gita on a daily basis. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavad Saptaha is, like Srila Prabhupada said, it is just something created because, Parikshit Maharaj was going to die in 7 days. He engaged himself constantly, Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya. Again, constantly, every moment he was hearing Bhagavatam. That is the need of human society. that we should engage in devotional service at every moment of our life. So here, after Kardama Muni says that, my dear Lord, I'm looking for a wife, and a wife who is very nicely endowed with good qualities, right? And she is a perfect match for me. So again, matching is very important, of mind, mating of the mind, not of the caste. Again, caste would give you like, okay, what kind of sanskar they have. It is very interesting nowadays when we see the advertisements. It is like, okay, we want a Brahman, but not just this Brahman, a specific caste of Brahman, boy or a girl, who has fair complexion, or who has high qualification, or who has good job, who is settled in US or UK. I mean, all these kind of conditions coming. It's easy to see how materially inflicted, people are. And they definitely want their sons and daughters to be married to really good qualified son, boy or girl. Yet at the same time, we should also understand that the other person should have the meeting of the mind. So Kardama Muni is expressing, and then he says that one who can satisfy my lusty desire. When he says that, Lord is understanding that he is in a very humble state. We will actually be hearing a lot more about him, that as how he received one of the most beautiful girl as his wife, right? And still he, was engaged in devotional service and waiting for the right moment, so that at that time he would carry out progeny. So he was continuing to have this meeting of the mind. Now there is a drastic difference in 3 levels of progeny. First was Lord Brahma. He did not even require, a lady part, or Mahavishnu, or, Garbhodakshai Vishnu. They were able to have progeny created. Lord Brahma just, came out from the lotus that sprouted from the navel of the Garbhodakshai Vishnu. Lord Brahma, from his body, he created so many living entities. But when Swayambhuva Manu Shatrupa appeared, they were the couple, and their progeny was seminal, progeny, so coming from in this manner, through intercourse. And similarly, Kardama Muni is also looking for a wife. And so, at that time, Lord smiles and he says, yes, soon Swayambhuva Manu himself would be coming, and he would be offering you his daughter, right? He has a daughter, Devahuti, and she is just suitable. She is endowed with all the qualifications. She has perfected the Ashtanga Yoga system. So she has all the 8 kind of siddhis, anima, laghima, and so forth. And she is very beautiful. She is of a perfect match for you. And when he will offer you, you should accept. And giving him these instructions, Kardama Muni is satisfied that yes, he is going to carry out. But Kardama Muni is carrying out the order of his father, Lord Brahma. The Lord Brahma said, increase the progeny, have children. But he just did not approach any, he was so potent, he was so powerful that he could have approached any of the Apsaras or any of the celestial ladies. But he did not do that. Who did he approach? He approached Lord, right? Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. He approached the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So when the, Lord appeared, at that time he put forth his request, and Lord accepted it. And as, having satisfied Kardama Muni, Lord, as he is returning through the airway, so there's a pathway, and through the air, as Garun is going, the flapping of his wings, the Samaveda is is being recited through the flapping. So when he's flapping, so again, sometimes people say, how could this be the case? The flapping of the wings. So there was one incident when Srila Prabhupada, he was giving a lecture. So again, I have heard this incident. And he was identifying that we should chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So the person, the audience said, but I don't see you chanting. So Srila Prabhupada said, put your ear to my back. And then he continued his lecture, and then he asked the person afterwards, what did you hear? He said, all I heard was Hare Krishna Mahamantra. You're constantly chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So this is the way, once again, a devotee is constantly engaged in devotional service. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Not like 1 hour in a day or 2 hours in a day. Every activity of a devotee, a devotee desires to, if he cannot, then he aspires to serve Lord Shri Krishna. Every activity is dovetailed. The Lord Krishna is always in the center. Because he tells Arjuna very clearly, Yat karoshi yadashnasi yajjuhoshi tadasi yat tapasyasi kanteya tat kurishwa madapranam. All 5 activities should be served, right? So yat karoshi, whatever you do. So any activity you do is with your mind, body and words. They should all be offered to please Lord Shri Krishna, right? Yadashnasi yajjuhoshi tadasi. Whatever you give away, whatever sacrifice you perform, whatever austerities you perform, everything should be done to please me, he is saying. Lord Krishna is telling Arjuna. So he is telling us, and Srila Prabhupada is elaborating that by devotional service we should constantly, everything that we do, the thoughts we have, we should think of these thoughts. Are they going to please Lord Shri Krishna? Anukulena Krishna Anushilena, right? So we have to carry out all our activities as Lord Krishna desires. Now that is surrender. Now when we talked about surrender, there are 6 limbs of surrender. Anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya varjanam rakshishyati iti vishwaso gopatitve varnam tatha atma nikshepa karpane shadvida sharanagati. So there are 6 limbs of surrender. Anukulyasya sankalpa, doing activities that are favorable to our devotional service. So accepting everything that is favorable to our devotional service. And pratikulyasya varjanam, and rejecting everything that is unfavorable to devotional service. Rakshishyati vishwaso, having a firm conviction, not just faith, conviction, nishtha, that Lord will protect us. Gopatitve varnam tatha, and accepting the guardianship of the Lordship. Atma nikshepa, completely surrendering everything to please Lord Shri Krishna. Karpane, in a humble mood. We should always stay humble, not be proud, because lust, anger and lust, anger and pride, right? They are the 3 gates of hell.
Lust, anger,
Greed. And they basically lead to the pride. So the roadway is pride, yes. So lust, anger and greed, they are the 3 gates of hell, as we hear in Bhagavad Gita. So here we are seeing that Kardama Muni, he is pleased and he goes back in his devotional service. It's not that, okay, now that I have received the blessing, let me enjoy. Or let me just go to sleep for 2 days. Wait till Swayambhuva Manu is coming, and constantly thinking, meditating, when Swayambhuva Manu will come and offer me his daughter. No, he was not doing that. He was constantly engaged in devotional service. Lord has given the blessings, that's great. Let me continue to please the Lord. Right? The focus is in pleasing, in giving, in reciprocating, showing the gratitude for all we have received. That is the mood of a devotee. So we should develop this mood. Develop the mood of humility, develop the mood of gratitude, because again that identifies, it helps us go to a higher altitude, and we want to get to the highest param, we want to get to that param dhama, Vaikuntha, we want to go back home. So where we are constantly engaged in devotional service. And so here Kardama Muni is engaged, and one day when he was just finishing up his morning oblations in the fire, the sacrificial fire, Swayambhuva Manu along with his wife Shatrupa, he arrives. Now one of the interesting things, when Lord has said that Swayambhuva Manu would be coming and offering you his daughter, and his sons, right, which is Uttanpad and, so again he has 2 sons that have been referred. Priyavrata, Priyavrata, Vrata, but that's also Priya, favorable. So very, very nice name, Priyavrata and Uttanpad. They are her brothers. So when he's talking about the daughter, when Lord he's appearing and telling that yes, Swayambhuva Manu would be offering you his daughter Devahuti in marriage, and whose brothers are Priyavrata and Uttanpad, who are the rulers of this this planet Earth. So he's basically saying the 7 dweeps, so again the 7 islands, the continents on this earth. So he's identifying very clearly And when brothers have been identified, it is also very interesting to see that when a girl, she has the protection of her father, but if she has very powerful, very qualified, very highly esteemed scholars and administrators as her brothers, then of course she is highly regarded from that perspective. And he is identifying this to Kardama Muni, that she has such great brothers, so she is a highly qualified sister of such great brothers. And also Maitreya Muni had also Maitreya Muni has also received this inquiry from Viduji, that he also wants to know about the other daughters, right, their progeny, who were married to Ruchi and Daksha. So again, that's also another aspect, because Ruchi married Akuti, another daughter of Swayambhuva Manu, and Daksha married Prasuti, the third daughter of Swayambhuva Manu. So this is in the beginning, and then when Swayambhuva Manu, along with his wife Shatrupa and Devotee, he comes to the sages' hermitage, which is at the bank of Saraswati on the western side in India. So now Saraswati has gone underground, so it's like below the land. She is still flowing. And at Prayag, where there is Sangam, the spot, the three rivers meet. Ganga coming from the north, Yamuna coming to the western side, and then from the bottom, and they cause a specific twirling action because of that Sangam spot. So the three rivers are actually meeting there, and Saraswati is coming under the ground. So here, this description has been identified that he is at the bank of Saraswati, and at his hermitage, Swayambhuva and Shatrupa, they have come after wandering around all the world. So of course they have a great mission, because Swayambhuva Manu is looking for the right match for his daughter. And the kings would go to meet sages, and the sages would come to meet kings, and this was called Priti Kriya. So again, this is loving exchange, because the sages are the spiritual masters of the world, and again, Brahmanas are said to be the spiritual masters, and sannyas is an ashram, right? It is not a varna. Sometimes it's mistaken to be a varna. So again, there are four varnas: Brahma, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. And the sannyas is an ashram, Vanaprastha is an ashram, Grihastha is an ashram, and Brahmachari is an ashram. So sometimes a Brahman who is a Grihastha is also a Brahman, and he is taking care of, as a Grihastha, not just his family. He is not just engaged in dharma, kam, moksha. Dharma is religiosity, carrying out his religious principles as per prescribed duties. Earth is economic development. A Grihastha engages in economic development because he is responsible not to just maintain his family, but also to maintain the Brahmacharya class, the Vanapastra, as well as Sannyas. So he has four responsibilities, not just his own responsibility. He is assisting in all four varnas sustenance. So all four ashrams are getting support from the Grihastha ashrams, so all other three ashrams as well. Sometimes people with miserly mindset only think that, okay, we are Grihastha, I have to just first take care of my family. Yes, charity begins at home. First take care of family, but then don't become too attached to Lakshmi and whatever facility you have been provided, because they have been provided to support the society, which includes people who are in student life, supports people who are in retired life, and also supports the sannyas ashram, people who are constantly engaging in lifting the society. So they also need the support which comes through Grihastha ashram. So there is a great importance of Grihastha ashram. And progeny, a good progeny is very important, because if we have Krishna conscious children, then it will benefit not just the children, but the whole society will be benefited by such progeny. And Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada used to say that he is ready to have 100 sons if they are all Krishna conscious. He was Ajivan Brahmachari. Again, he never married. So again, he was constantly as a sannyasi, he continued. So it was not that he was in brahmachari, then he went to grahastha, then he took vanaprastha or sannyas. He stayed as a brahmachari most of his life, and then he took to sannyas directly, and so he carried out his duty. So it is not that you have to go through all ashramas. You have to understand that what is your prescribed duties and what is your inclination. And it is glorified, yes. If you can stay in brahmacharya for a long time and then finally take to sannyas, then you have not put yourself in a state where there is a tendency to fall. Because when you enter grahastha ashram, if you become attached to the family members, if you get attached to the economic development that's happening, and you kind of like hoard wealth and you become miser, that is a case where instead of becoming a grahastha, you become a graha medhi. You cause more disturbance in society than be a rightful or religious and righteous person in society. So we have to be very, very careful that these ashramas, ashram also means shelter, that we take shelter, we should not just create a shell, right? And be like the frog waiting for, croaking, so that, death personified in the form of snake would come. Because a frog, when it's croaking, the sound vibration is experienced by the snake, and it comes and can eat up the frog. So again, that's not what we want to face. We want to be very conscious of our life by engaging in devotional service. So when Kardama Muni, he sees Swayambhuva Manu coming, and Swayambhuva Manu looks at this sage who is in the prime youth of his life. So now somebody would say, wait a minute, this sage was meditating for 10,000 years, and he must be an adult by the time he received the instruction from Lord Brahma. How could he be youthful? Remember, the life used to be 100,000 years in Satyuga, not our current age, because in Satyuga people could perform austerities, but with the leaving of Satyuga and Treta Yuga, what happened was the ability to austerity went away, because the people had life of 10,000 years in Treta Yuga. So austerity, that leg was broken, so they could perform yagyas, fire oblations, and that is big. And you have to take care of 6 types of cleanliness, the place, the person, the samagris, tapsthali and all that. So the cleanliness was there, so one could attain perfection by performing yagyas. Cleanliness was there. But with the coming of Dwapar Yuga, even the cleanliness diminished. The second leg of religion was broken, and people then remember mercy, so they would go on paricharyayam. So again, by serving the lotus feet of Lord Shri Krishna, by going on pilgrimage, people would attain perfection. When you go on a dham, for a place of pilgrimage, then you are not just taking bath in the river. That mentality is that of a gokhara, cow and asses, it is said, and it becomes crow-like mentality. That is not the truth. The importance is to get instructions from the spiritualized, realized beings when you go from the devotees. Just like Viduji, he went on a pilgrimage and he took shelter of Maitreya Muni and is making inquiries from Maitreya Muni. And Maitreya Muni is so excited to discuss wonderful pastimes of Lord Shri Krishna. This is, pleasure giving to the devotees when they get to glorify Lord Shri Krishna and his devotees. So this conversation is going on. So here, the king is coming to see Kardama Muni, right? Swayambhuva Manu, he is the administrator of the world. And when he sees, he can see that this youthful looking sage has so much effulgence, but he seems to be soiled, right? A person who is living in the forest, sometimes gets soiled. So here he sees that this is an unpolished gem, right? So the way diamond, when it comes out, it's very interesting when you find a diamond and you have like a sendha namak, like a rock of salt. You put them aside, it's very difficult to identify which one is which, right? But the origin tells you the difference, because sendha namak also comes from, right, again, it's a rock salt. It's also coming from the mountain, but the diamond is coming also from a mountain, but that's coming from a coal mine. So when the coal has been compressed to such a level that it appears like a rock salt, and that's a diamond, unpolished diamond. When it is polished, when it has been nicely given the shape of diamond, again it shines out it shows its beautiful colors and people are able to appreciate the diamond. So here Kardama Muni is appearing like an unpolished gem. So like that. And here, as soon as Kardama Muni he sees, so it is not that I'm the administrator of the world, I have come to your pilgrimage at your hut, and you should immediately forget what you are doing. He sees that the sage is engaged in finishing his sacrificial oblations, so he waits for the sage. So again, this is also how humble the administrator of the universe behaves. And then we see the arrogance of some of the politicians, and it's like, the very aspect of humility seems to be demeaning for them. And they don't understand how glorious it is to be humble. It is one of the limb of surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, not to the other living entity. Yes, we also see that other living entity, all living entities have Lord in their heart as super soul. They are very dear to the Lord. So we are paying obeisances to the Lord. But sometimes people in material consciousness, they think that we are paying obeisances to them. And so they get bewildered. And they fall down with that mentality. They commit offenses to others in that mentality by speaking arrogantly, full of pride. They sometimes say, like things which can be hurting. And we should not even perform janapra. We should not even offend general populace. What to talk about devotees? That would be mad elephant disease. We don't want to disturb our devotion, because a nice garden is disturbed and completely destroyed when a mad elephant walks into such a garden, rampages through the garden. So we should be very, very careful.
What is the solution?
So what is the solution? That we have to develop a fence around the garden, which is like having devotee association. To save our bhakti lata, we have to make sure that the creepers, the anarthas, and these are taken out as well. The weeds have to be taken out. So that's like the anarthas, having the wrong mindset, getting the wrong feelings, seeking material enjoyment. These feelings, these weeds must be taken out so that they don't drain away all the nutrition from the soil. And what is the watering process? The chanting of the holy name. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Rāma, Hare Rāma, Rāma Rāma, Hare Hare. And here, sage Kardama, when he greets, right? We all understand from our culture, from our, Sanskriti, we see that Mehman Bhagwan ka roop hota hai, right? So he glorifies. He is not saying, I am a great sage, I have seen the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yes, Swambhav Manu has already heard about this. He is the administrator of the world, and he is coming to meet the sage. So here, Kardama Muni glorifies the position of Swambhav Manu as an administrator of the world. And in this way, he is saying that you are the administrator of the world, you are going around with your bow and arrow, you are kind of like subduing all these armies of miscreants who are shaking the globe. Shaking the globe can be taken in two ways. That there were so many armies. Even in Satyuga, people would be afflicted with material desires, as we see in the case of Hiranyaksh. Hiranya means gold, Aksh means who has eye for. So he was always trying to seek out gold. And he was using his prowess to extract gold. And so, in this way, he caused the earth to fall out of its orbit. And when great armies, they march with this material consciousness, right? Sometimes an army marches to another nation thinking we'll get their oil. That's also material consciousness. So that mentality is bad. So again, that causes the earth to shake because the imbalance happens on earth. When you extract too much, then your need from this Mother Earth, from this planet. Another one is Bhumi Devi. She is constantly the presiding deity of this planet Earth. She shudders at the thought of these materialists, that what kind of havoc they are going to cause. And we'll hear in the beginning of the 10th canto that when there were so many kings who are actually asuras, who are like demons, appearing as kings, were there on this planet Earth, she went to Lord Brahma in the form of a cow. Go also means earth and go also means cow. in the form of a cow, and she was crying and pleading to Lord Brahma to find a solution. So again, and so Kardama Muni is glorifying that you as an administrator, you as the ruler of this universe, not of this planet Earth, but of this universe, you are carrying out your duties so nicely, and you are such a glorious, such a righteous king, and you have such wonderful, principles that you follow. And so he's glorifying, he's respecting. Having mutual respect is an essential aspect. We should respect everyone based on their position, based on their activities. And so this is where, Manu expresses his thought that he is worried about his daughter. He's looking for a suitable, groom for his daughter. And so again, so these are loving exchanges they are expressing, and they're, clearly presenting their thoughts. Again, devotees, they present based on time, place, circumstances, their thoughts as they are, without keeping like an hidden motives. It is a materialistic mindset to have to keep the motives hidden and try to make the other person give you or take from another person. Hare Krishna. And that is also known as duplicity. And such a person in the Shastras have been referred to as Pakhandi or Pashandi, right? That's Pashandi is the Sanskrit word and Pakhandi is the Hindi word. Hypocrite is another way. So such a person, we should be very careful from such a person, because such a person is only watching out for their own self-interest. They are not looking at the interests of the society. And sometimes, such a person can cause havoc to this society and to this world, and can cause much grief and agitation even to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Just like we'll see in the case of Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, how much pain they caused, not just to their parents. And this is where Kardama Muni, when he wanted to have progeny, he approached Lord Vishnu. Diti, when she wanted to have sons, she approached her husband, Kashyapa Muni. And at the wrong time, at the wrong place, in the wrong circumstances, so she gave birth to demons. When devotees, they approach the Lordship, they continue to engage in devotional service as per the regulation, and they also perform Garbhadhan Samskar, which is to have the right consciousness. And Shastras, and again Srila Prabhupada said that, minimum 64 rounds before begetting, planning to beget a son or a daughter, would enable the right soul, the right, a devotee soul to be attracted to the womb, so that the progeny will be very nice. This is where the chapter ends. Again, Devahuti's beauty has been also glorified, where she is so beautiful that one day on the terrace of the palace she was playing with a ball. And at that time, one of the Gandharva, Vishwasu, he was traveling, and when he saw her playing with the ball, he was so mesmerized by her beauty that he fell off of his plane. So maybe that's the point. People realize that people, when they are in the place, and if they see something very attractive, at the bottom, they would fall off. They decided the windows to not open up, right? Hare Krishna. This is just, something to meditate on. So again, in our airplanes that we see today, they have windows, but those windows don't open up. There is a reason for that, because there is pressure difference, temperature difference, other factor. But when we hear this incident of Gandharva Vishwasu, he's falling down when he was looking at Devahuti when she was a young girl, and she was playing with a ball on the terrace of the palace. So, of course, in the heavenly planets and other places, we see that these planes, they have even open, and they are very well able to manage, even with an open environment, their internal atmosphere is contrastically in great contrast, is well managed compared to the surroundings that they are in. This is where the chapter ends, and this is, again, we hear about the essential aspects that all desires are fulfilled when we surrender to the Lordship and His devotees. We also see that the good progeny is encouraged, and we hear about such progeny which is appearing in disciplic succession, and we like to understand the meaning behind it. So again, the third aspect is also that we want to seek the context, right? Not just an action, but what is the motive behind the action? That is also very important. So that way we have the knowledge in right understanding, so that when we practice that knowledge in our life, when we bring it to our life, we can have the proper realization in right perspectives. Hare Krishna, this is where the chapter ends. Gantra SRIMADBHAGAVATAM ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Anant Kori Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai, Nitai Go Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna. Are there any questions?
Hare Krishna, dear viewers. Thank you for joining the Srimad Bhagavatam class today. आज जीव तत्व प्रभु जी ने हमें कैंटो 3 चैप्टर 21 से वंडरफुल लेसन शेयर किए, और साथ ही में this class was like a very nice refresher to understand a lot of different topics, how we can engage in devotional service, how we can and nurture and nourish our devotional service with constant chanting and Shravanam and Kirtanam and Vishnu Smaranam. And प्रभु जी ने ये भी बताया कि किस तरह से साधु संगा से we can put a fence around the activities our Krishna conscious life. And प्रभु जी ने further इस chapter के lessons share किए, how we can come to Krishna with all our desires, क्योंकि भगवान fulfill करते हैं all the desires. So we do not need to take any indirect ways. और इसके अलावा प्रभु जी ने काफ़ी जो सेक्शंस हैं इस चैप्टर के जो कि बहुत ही इलेबोरेट है, उनको संक्षेप में हमारे बेनिफिट के लिए वंडरफुल लेसन्स के फॉर्म में हमसे शेयर किया. एट दिस टाइम अगर आपको कुछ भी क्वेश्चंस हैं तो प्लीज़ यू कैन प्रेजेंट योर क्वेश्चंस इन द कमेंट्स एरिया. आई कैन आस्क प्रभु जी टू आंसर दोज क्वेश्चंस. प्रभु जी ने आज हमें बहुत ही वंडरफुल टॉपिक ऑफ संबंध ज्ञान अभिधेय प्रयोजन के बारे में भी या इंसाइट्स दिए, और कई बार रिक्वेस्ट आती है व्यूअर्स से, दे वांट टू अंडरस्टैंड दिस टॉपिक बेटर. तो प्रभु जी ने उस टॉपिक पर भी हमें बहुत नाइसली ये इंफॉर्मेशन शेयर की. आगे भी लेक्चर्स में इन टॉपिक्स पर डिस्कशन होगा. सो प्रभु जी, while we are on this topic और कुछ क्वेश्चन नहीं नज़र आ रहे हैं, तो why don't you just help us all understand one specific topic and then we can wrap up this class. So जब न्यू डिवोटीज चैंटिंग शुरू करते हैं और डिवोशनल सर्विसेज में एंगेज करते हैं, तो वो शुरू में इस तरह से एक्सप्रेस करते हैं कि चैंटिंग करते हुए उन्हें वो टेस्ट फील नहीं हो रहा है. एक्चुअली काफ़ी एक्सपीरियंस डिवोटीज़ भी ये वंडर करते हैं एट द टाइम्स व्हेन वी रियली वांट टू सिंसियरली टेक शेल्टर ऑफ भगवान, लेकिन वो कनेक्शन फील नहीं होता है. सो कैन यू प्लीज़ गिव अस सम टिप्स व्हाट कैन हेल्प इन दिस sadhana, in this process of chanting and connecting to Bhagwan.
Hare Krishna. So again, many times this happens.
Wait, Prabhuji, can I put on the microphone?
So we all understand that chanting is transcendental sound vibration. But because of so many coverings of material consciousness, right, that we have, we cannot experience the sweetness, the transcendental bliss of the chanting of the holy name. So it is not the chanting has lacking something, it is we who are lacking something. It reminds me of a story where a husband was thinking that his wife, cannot hear. So he would call, from a distance. So one day he decided, I'm going to test from how far on she can't hear me. So he said, have you cooked the meal? And he doesn't hear, so he walks forward. And then he says again, so he's like about 25 meters far away. He calls out, have you cooked the meal? No response. Comes to 5 meters closer, so again 20 meters. He says, have you cooked the meal? No response. Then he comes to 15 meters, right? 5 meters further closer. Have you cooked the meal? No response. Then 5 meters forward he moves, 10 meter distance. He says, have you cooked the meal? No response. Then he comes closer, like 5 meters away. He says, have you cooked the meal? And his wife says, for the 5th time, yes, I have. So it is not the wife who couldn't hear. It was the husband who couldn't hear her. So the knowledge is perfect, but we do not have the taste. And so we have to always try to understand our sambandh with the Lord. Jivera Swarupoya Krishna Nityadas. We are the eternal servant. Lord is our eternal master. And the relationship of master or servant is that the servant should always be engaging in pleasing the master, in satisfying the needs of the master. Should be the order supply of the master and should not expect master to be the order supply. Many times people, when material consciousness, when they go to the temple, it says Lord Krishna is the owner of everything. So we should get things from him. So they pray to get things. Yes, Lord provides everything. Yes, when you pray for him, he fulfills all your desire. But the mood of a devotee is to please the Lord. Second is to avoid Vaishnava offenses. We talked about mad elephant disease. We should avoid them. And we should be respectful even to the general populace. What to talk about the Lord. And we should always be meditating. The third aspect is meaning of the holy name. Again, Namarth Chinta. Again, Chintanam. So again, we should always be Chintanam, meditating on the meaning, earth of the holy name. That my dear Radha, my dear Lord Krishna, please engage me in your devotional service, which is the meaning of Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Then the fourth is the mood of surrender. We covered the 6 limbs of surrender. So that is how we should be. And of the 6 limbs, the last one is humility. So it has been stressed again of the 6 aspects as how we should be chanting. Humility is essential, right? And the third verse of Shri Shiksha Ashtika refers to it. And what's the verse? Again, Taradapi sunichena tarorapi saishnuna amani namana dena kirtaniya sadahari. Become more humble than the grass on the street, be more tolerant than the tree. Always ready to give all respect to others, expecting no respect for oneself. One can chant constantly, eternally, Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya. And last but not the least, making it as an offering of a prayer, as a prayer. So we should be offering it as a prayer that, my dear Lord, please engage me in your service. And having this understanding one's lowly position, that we have received so much, but for so many millions of births we have forgotten him, also makes us very humble. So in a prayerful mode, in a humble mode, with the mood of surrender, meditating on the meaning of the holy name, avoiding all kind of offenses to the chanting of the holy name, when we constantly remember our sambandha, relationship with Lord Shri Krishna, and pray in this way, we get the mercy of the Lord and we develop taste. There is also one devotee was sharing that they were listening to 8 or 9 minute lecture. Not lecture, it's basically a conversation by Andhra Prabhu. So Andhra Prabhu, he used to live in Vrindavan and he is no more. So again he passed on. So he was sharing that he received taste, and taste develops very nicely when you hear Kirtan. So Kirtan is again, we did this Kirtan when we are reading Srimad Bhagavatam, that is also Kirtan. But the Kirtan he is referring to is the musical one, right? So when you hear a lot of musical Kirtan of chanting of the holy name, Mahamantra is being sung by the devotees, then it develops attraction in our heart to the chanting of the holy name. So please, again today in the Japa call we saw that a couple of our attendees, they were singing while they were doing Japa, and this was bringing a smile to many people's faces, because we realized that they are developing the taste because they are singing it. And Japa, even the chanting of the holy name, should be, it's in a, every word is a song in the spiritual world. Then what to talk about the word which is representing Krishna, which is not different from Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna name and Lord Krishna person, they are not different. So with this way we can develop taste for chanting, and we can chant constantly, eternally. Kirtaniya Sadahari. Hare Krishna, hopefully this satisfies.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji. Yes, definitely all these wonderful tips can certainly help everyone improve their chanting. So, Prabhuji, अब इसके अलावा और questions हमें इस वक्त नहीं दिख रहे हैं. I think we can end the session now.
Grantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Bhagavad ki jai. अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। निताय गो प्रेमानंदे। हरि हरि बोल। हरे कृष्ण।